Hi everyone, I'm Zoris, and this is part 5 of the Ultimate Guide to Engineers. So we're already at the last part of our series on engineers. We've covered a lot of topics. And what remains to be seen is different openings for engineers. So let's get to it. All right. So I've shown here what you should expect to get by the end of round 2. You should have 2 temples and 2 dwellings, and that's kind of the objective. So I start this opening section of the guide by showing you what you should aim for. 2 temple, 2 dwellings, and Earth 1, Earth 2. That's almost, I will say in your standard game, that's what you're aiming for. And if you're getting that, it means that you're on the right track. If you can get more, then even better. But the second temple is important for the power income that it gets and for being able to pick an economic tile. So, and the 2 dwellings, if you remember well, are one of the point where you get the most efficient ratio of worker production compared to other faction. Because the 3rd dwelling doesn't give you an income, so it's a good place to be by the end of round 2. And how you end up getting there is not that important. What is important is that you get there, and we'll see the different way that you can do that. All right. So how do you get there? There will be different ways in order to get there. And usually you'll want one of these 2 bonus. The spade is harder to get, obviously, because often it's the first bonus picked, and often NGs are picked first, second. They're rarely picked in the 4th seed because people usually pick them early. So most often you'll get the 1 worker 3 power, which is really good for NG. Maybe just as good as the spade. And you'll go for a temple. I've put this one here. It really depends on how much, since you're gonna do a second temple very soon. The first temple, the location of the first temple is not as important than for other factions. For other factions, you want to make sure that your first temple is where your sanctuary might end up. For NG, it's not so much important because you're gonna do a second temple very soon. So you just put your first temple wherever you're gonna get the most leech. And you want to pick Earth 1. I mean, again, NG, they are a faction that are, even with Earth 1, they're gonna take an economic favor very soon, again with this second temple. And also, even with Earth 1, you have very high economy with NG. So what you want is efficient way to convert your economy into points, and there's no really more efficient ways than Earth 1. So that's a faction in which you'll almost always want Earth 1. And we'll see some case where you might not, but most of the time you'll want Earth 1. And if you have the spade bonus, you're gonna get the single spade. Often you won't be able to get the double spade with NG. But if you can get the double spade, it's very good. It's what you should go for. But even the single spade is alright as long as you think you can secure a spade for next round. So, and then you can do a trading post. If there is brown or black in the game, raiding here is often a good way to get power. So you'll see all kind of tricks. So for example, if a faction that you know is not going for Earth 1 is in the game, you're then starting with 2 trading posts to kind of maximize leeches on both starting points will be a good strategy. So yeah, you have to be like aware of these little things, because these little things, even if it gives you 1-2 more powers, with NG all resources count. It's true with all factions, but it's twice as true with NG. So every trick that you can do in order to get more power, you should do. Also, so again, if you can get a double spade, and that will be more often with the 1 worker 3 power bonus, then by all means you should do it. Even if you're not building that second dwellings, you don't have to, because sometimes you will prefer, I mean, depends what resources you have. If you have the 1 worker 3 power, you probably will be able to build that other dwelling, because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yeah, it will require 5 workers in order to do so. So you should be able to build it. But if for some reason, I mean, sometimes you'll get the coin bonus and so on, but you still get a double spade, you're not forced to build that dwelling. If you don't have the resources, you don't have to build it. Alright, so the next thing I want to consider is, what if you don't get spades in round 1, and that will happen time to time, and you have an interesting backup plans for this, which is 2 temples. And 2 temples opening is interesting because in itself, if you could guarantee getting the double spade next round, I think it will be NG's best opening. So I say it's a backup plan, but in a way it's also their best opening, because second temple giving you it's 5 power, it's really powerful. So you can start having an income from the favorite child, and getting the 2 temples is going to give you leech. Has a lot of upsides. The only downside with the 2 temple opening is that it's kind of slow. It takes you 4 moves to get there, at least, because sometimes you also need a power action. And danger is, what if either someone passes before you, or sometimes even if brown is in the game, the red hex might be targeted. So yeah, it's kind of can be kind of dangerous. The thing is, with NG, you want to make sure to secure some hexes early on. You may have noticed in I can go back to it actually. I think you'll want often these 2 hexes as fast as possible. This one because the red can be really contested. Often brown will need to take it. Sometimes brown will be happy to just have these 3 hexes and do a sanctuary town, but often either this hex is occupied by darklings, and taking this will help him to go faster to the north and do his town. Either it's not, but he wants to do 4 structures down, or you just want to annoy NG. So there's kind of different reasons for brown to take this hex. Often you won't, because NG will take it faster, but beware, this can be a contested hexes. And usually what happens is that brown ends up being first here, because you develop this way. This hex, there's less pressure on it. It's not impossible that black takes it. I mean, we're talking, of course, if there's no green in the game, but it's not impossible that black takes it, but it's rarely good for him. It's often a mistake to go for this hex, because usually if he's here, he'll prefer to get a ton of powers by you building on these 2 hexes. So if black is here, he would rather, he should rather not take the green hex. If you're with beginners, sometimes they will take it anyway, so beware of that. And the advantage of taking this 2 hexes is also that it gives you 2 free hex, 2 gray hex from 1 shipping, so maybe you'll be able to exploit that. Or even with this one, you just need 1 dig then to build these 2 hexes, which is very good too. So this hex has kind of a lot of potential. Often though with NG, if you can get the red hex here, it's really good because it gives you very fast access to the west. That's when often it will opens up the possibility of a third town there. So it's, yeah, I remember when I was starting to play NG, I had a lot of success by rushing this way. But after that, I realized that it kind of was dangerous because you really don't want to lose that red hex. So yeah, I will recommend to go for these 2 hexes first, and then if you can get there, then so much better. Or if you can get the green again, it's all good. So even if there's no brown in the game, sometimes this red can be targeted. If it's fakirs, for example, you might want to jump there in order to secure this, or nomads or fakirs, they might dig the brown and then try to beat you to the red. So all this to say that the double temple opening, in terms of resources it gives you, it's really good. The 5 power from the temple, the worker here, it's really good, but it's risky because there might be some pressure on your key hexes, and it's not guaranteed that you're, since it's long to set up, it's not guaranteed that you'll get a double spade next round. Say for example nomad is in the game, he just temples up and passes, gets enough leech, and you use the double spade next round. I mean, there are some danger that you might not get the double spade and kind of get stuck. And I've seen some games where NG don't even get the single spade, so they just get stuck with their temples for 2 rounds in a row. So yeah, good opening, good backup plan, but you have to know it's risky. It's very risky. Okay, so that kind of covers the main openings for NG. So either the 2 temples or temple, dwelling, and trading post, because again, don't want to have 3 dwellings since the 3rd one doesn't give you an income. And the trading post is interesting because it gives you, it's your best building, right? So having one on the board in round 1 is not a bad idea. It prepares temples too. Next, what I want to cover is different alternative openings for NG. And one of my favorites is actually the Dwelling Rush. So for the Dwelling Rush, you'll need like something like this, either dwelling around 1 and temple around 2, or dwelling around 1, temple around trading post around 2 and temple around 3. I think trading posts are not trading posts, but dwelling rushes are underused opening. Usually people just do them with either witches or mermaids, but other faction can do very well with a dwelling rush, and among them there will be NG and also nomads, I think, maybe Elflings to some extent. Then the thing is, with NG, what you're gonna do is take the shipping bonus and take the double spade as your first action, build these 2 dwellings, and you then build these 2 others. So it's not as impressive as a dwelling rush from other factions, since you end up with 6 trucksters instead of 7 or 8 with mermaids and witches. But truth is, to get to that many dwellings with NG, the kind of worker income it's gonna give you, it's gonna be really strong. I mean, for example, my kind of favorite setup for Dwelling Rush, if you can get this, because it's not often that you get a track like this, with round 1 dwelling or round 2 trading posts, you can do 4 trading posts in round 2. I mean, especially if you can get the trading post bonus, that's so good. And no other faction can do that, right? With mermaids, maybe you'll be able to build 8 to get to 8 dwellings with your Dwelling Rush, but you won't be able to build 4 trading posts in round 2 because your resources are not as valuable. So the fact that NG can do this. It makes their dueling rush a bit different than others and all, but not less interesting. You may also wonder, 6 structures, is that efficient? Since we know the 6th dwelling doesn't give any income. Well, the reason why you're doing it is, well, it gives you 2 points because it's a dwelling round. But also you make most use of the shipping bonus, right? You have to open with these 2, and then you use the fact that you have temporary shipping to set foot already there. And the good thing is that now that these 2 are built, you don't have to worry about shipping for a while. You can just dig the rest. So all in all, also one interesting thing about NG for the dwelling rush, if you go with the temple around you, and I mean, you can, let's say that in round 2 it's trading post and not temple in round 3. You could decide to build temples in round 2. It's trading post. Temple is building trading post too, so that's really up to you. But another advantage of the NG dwelling rush is that you'll be able to build 2 temples. So in round 2 if you want. So you can take water one as the first one and get 3 extra points for your first trading post and temple that you do. And with a good economy, I mean, NG can score a lot from the trading post, favor tiles from water one. I mean, and a dwelling rush obviously sets you up for a good economy. So I mean, it's not impossible with NG to get 21 points out of your trading, out of building trading post, out of water one, and then on top of that you'll be able to add some points for air one. So I mean, 21 points, usually a faction will do 22, 24 points out of Earth 1, so getting 21 points out of Water 1, it's not so much less than Earth 1. So one thing to consider for NG, and one other reason why NG are interesting with dwelling rushes. Okay, next I wanted to say a word about playing against green faction and dwelling rush. And usually you won't be able to dwelling rush against green faction because usually NG are picked before witches. But in the cases where NG are picked after witches, and you can get the shipping bonus. So if you're picked before witches, the reason why you can do a dwelling rush is that witches will almost always take the shipping bonus, and they show just to prevent you from getting it and to do a dwelling rush themselves. And against green faction, you'll want to dwelling rush almost all the time. If you're picked again after witches and you have the chance of getting the shipping bonus, you should almost always go for a dwelling rush, because dwelling rush is going to allow you to take this very key hexes, and so you'll always start there when you have this plan in mind. And you'll take this very key hexes, which is really bad for witches. Witches will really love to have this hex, and it will allow you to connect easily. So you start with this kind of setup, and you complete it with building 2 more dwellings, having your 6 dwellings on board, so it's just as good. Then the other one, in terms of start at least, it's not as good because you don't have. Here you're kind of close to do a town. If you do the dwelling rush this way, you already have 3 workers. Here it's going to be a little bit longer before you town up, so it's not quite as good, but it's still pretty good. I mean, it's definitely the best thing you can hope fighting against a green faction. So dwelling rush against green faction every time you can. Next, I want to consider the openings where it's not as common opening. It's what I call semi-dwelling rush, and the reason why it's not as common is because you need the spade bonus to make it work. The idea is that you're gonna do kind of dwelling rush, but without the shipping bonus, and contrary to usual dwelling rush, you'll build a trading post. So for example here, if you can get the double spade, so you get the trading post up here and you get enough you have the spade bonus, you get a trading post, and you have enough to get a double spade. You can take all these hexes with the double spade and then the single spade. And I mean, the leech that you're gonna get in the center after that, and just the territory that you've just grabbed, it's amazing. It gets you have a really good game. So that's not that common because you need a spade and a double spade, but if you can do it, it's really good. It will give you terrific economy. Again, you can, if you missing Earth 1 in this circumstance, when you get so much economy, it's not such a big deal. You can go for Water 1 and probably be able to score 21 points out of it. So if you can get the double spade, then you can also get the single spade and do the exact same opening here. The difference though, this is definitely inferior. So you're building as many dwellings, but the territory that you grab is less important than what you had here. Here it's contested hexes. Here it's hexes that you probably will get one way or the other. While in this version, it's these hexes, especially the red one here, you probably don't get if you don't rush toward it. So because either nomads or browns, if they are in the game, they're gonna want this hex. So it's not as good, but it can be interesting still if you were not too stressed about the hexes here, and if you have like a good track for it, say dwelling in round 1, temple in round 2, then it can work. And in both cases, the big advantage, whether it's this or this, is that you're going to be able to do a very early town, and this early town is particularly valuable for Angie because again you'll get resources from the town, and these resources will help you to snowball. So you can expect to have a very good economy this way. That's the big advantage of this kind of semi-dwelling rush over the dwelling rush, that over true dwelling rush with the shipping bonus, is that you're gonna town up a lot faster, and resources from the town are extremely valuable early on. For any faction, but especially for Angie. Okay, so last opening I want to consider with Angie is the Water Cult Focus. And again, have to give credit for that to Menpenzi on in the forum on Steve's series. Let's talk about different faction, which you should check. It's a lot of valuable information on there. It's on Board Game Geek. Menpenzi pointed out this opening. I don't think that I've done it really. It takes a very specific setup where you have like Water Cult in round 1 at least, and ideally in round 2 also. And the idea, and it takes a specific bonus tile too. You need to have the 4 coins in Cult Bump, but that's kind of often the case with Angie, since you are usually picked early and usually this bonus is one of the last that is picked. They often get it. And the idea is that you're going to go for the 2 temples opening with Earth 1, but the second thing you're going to get is Water 2 rather than Earth 2. And the idea is that you're going to go up the Water Cult and get the spade from round 1. So you get the 6 points from the trading post because you're building 2 temples. And you also get the spade. So which has the big advantage, if you remember, the big problem with the temple opening was that the risk of getting stuck to 2 temples or not getting enough spades early on. At least this way you're getting a spade, and it also gives you the opportunity to play more on the cults. So that has some interest. After that, especially if there's a priest bonus somewhere. I said round 2, it could be round 3, will work too. So that allows NG to have a more cult focused game. So I've never really done it this way, but I've tried sometimes using Water 2 as Angie, and it's possible. It's interesting. It's something that can be done. Again, I mean, you could do that too with your second temple, say if it's round 2 and 3 where you have the spade and the priest as cult income. Maybe you dig in the first round, as we've seen. You just do your normal opening in second temple rather than going Earth 2, you go Water 2 to exploit these different incomes. So I not sure still that it will be better than the Earth 2, even in this very peculiar context. But it might very well be comparable, be as good. If you want to add some variety, that's something that can be explored more, I think. Alright, so that concludes not only this kind of section on openings, but actually our whole series on the engineers. I hope that you had fun, that it was instructive, and that you're now more understanding better this faction and enthusiastic to try to play it more. I mean, once you get NG, I remember it's the first faction that I really got, that I really understood. Once you have this kind of feeling, they are a ton of fun to play. So I really encourage you to experiment with them. You're going to do the most amazing stuff with them once you kind of get the hang of them. So it's really worth investigating. So yeah, thank you for listening. And question will be, who's next now? That we've seen engineers. I was kind of hesitating between nomads and swarmlings, giving the input that you guys gave me, and right now I'm leaning much more over the swarmlings for the next video. So give me your thought about that. So swarmlings, I think right now are very exciting factions. There's a lot of development on how they are played, and I think that an ultimate guide on them will be in order to kind of put clearly things out about them. I think it will be a lot of fun to do too. So one way or the other, that won't come anytime soon. As you've seen, I had a hard time registering these videos. Took a little time, but so I think around Christmas I'll have more time. So that's probably when I'll aim for the next ultimate guide. So thanks a lot for listening to this series. Again, post your comments, and I wish that you join us on Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern. We're doing the stream there. It's always a lot of fun. So you're more than welcome if you want to join. All right. So have a good week, and until the next time, have fun. Bye-bye.